quarterback trainer and film analyst. You got to check him out on YouTube. He does a great job. If you like football, you like Tim Jenkins breakdowns, all things QB on YouTube. Of course, the Elite Academy, T Jenkins Elite on Twitter, and he joins us. Hi, Tim. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. What's the buzz? We were just, we were having a conversation. We can start here. We were talking about Arizona, Arizona State. Those are two schools when you talk about college football that people always expect to be better just because of, a multitude of reasons. Let's put it that way. And then how about Colorado? There was a lot of juice there in Boulder. For those that don't know, Tim Jenkins lives in Colorado. And then what the hell was that against Stanford? You can't take an L there, Tim.
Yeah, so first and foremost, U of A, ASU should be good, right? Walking around campus, it'd be hard to not get an 18-year-old dumbass to commit. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so
true.
I think the reality is if you can't recruit to U of A or ASU, we got to get you out of there. So Boulder, yeah, I mean, I think, listen, I think we got to give credit to Dion for the positive things, and then you also got to give him blame for you go into halftime, it kind of more or less feels like your team checks out at that point, and then you let one of the craziest comebacks happen. So my father-in-law, he's a huge wait for someone to get down and then bet on the plus 800s, right? He's like why everyone's building big casinos out there by you guys. He is perfect. You go to his win-loss, and I don't know how he stays in the positive, but he does. So I'm surprised he did not take Stanford at that point. However, he didn't, right? Fell asleep on the couch. He's snoring. And then all of a sudden Stanford comes roaring back. I just think the reality is I'm not completely positive that CU and Dion's team are ready for that kind of spotlight yet. I think they will get there. I just think we kind of got excited about TCU and some other things that fell their way, and they're just not quite that team yet.
It's a great point you make there. This team blows a 29-point lead in case people missed it on Friday night. Let's go to a quarterback who you recently looked at. Trevor Lawrence plays on Thursday, has a knee injury. Just from your perspective as a former quarterback, how difficult is it in this 72 to 96-hour window to get ready and go play an opponent whose defense is as competitive as the Saints? And then if you're Jacksonville, big picture-wise, would you look to potentially say, hey, it'd be bad to lose a game, but if we were to rest him, we got probably a much healthier Trevor Lawrence moving forward in 10 more days?
Especially 17-game season now, right? We're not talking – not that I guess one is that big of a deal, but we have a long season. I think you probably have to consider shutting him down for a Thursday night game. In terms of preparation, you're putting in – it's really a training camp level offense. You're hoping we have enough 2 beaters, 3 beaters, quarter beaters. You want a good selection because you don't know what game plan they're going to come out for you with. You want a really good 4 to 5 play selection based on each coverage shell. And then on these short turnarounds, you'll dress them up formationally. So what I mean by that is, hey, we might run, we call it bingo, where you have the basic with the post on the same side, 12-yard in with a 12-yard post behind it. You can try to get that quarter safety to come up. We'll take the big shot. So you might put in bingo this week, but you'll put it out of 2x2. Hey, motion to 3x1. Hey, we're going to start in 3x1, motion to 2x2, and still run bingo. To where the defense, it looks like 17 different concepts. For you, you really have a shorter install for your guys. So that way your guys can play fast. To me, Thursday night football is all about playing fast. If as a coach, you can get your guys dialed in to where they're going to go out there and play fast regardless of the game plan they face, you probably have a better shot at winning than if you're going to try to actually scheme this thing up like you would for a Sunday game. It's just not feasible. So to me, I think you limit your menu. You make sure you have beaters for coverage types. You dress them up with formation. And you tell your guys, hey, we're going to go out there and win because you're better football players than they are, right? That's really what your message has to be. And then you give them a shorter playbook to where they can play faster.
Our buddy Tim Jenkins, QB guru, trainer. Of course, he trained P.J. Walker, picked up a big win. At T Jenkins Elite on Twitter. Okay, so I asked them all about this. I want to ask you about it, Tim. Give me a second here. So there was an article on Friday that came out on ESPN where they asked a bunch of anonymous GMs and scouts in the NFL about Caleb Williams. And they said Caleb Williams is he's going to make Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence look like game managers. And then one scout compared Caleb Williams' running ability to Lamar Jackson. Am I on something? Because I think Caleb Williams is going to be wonderful. First off, Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence are spectacular, specifically Burrow at this point. And then Lamar Jackson, nobody's run like him in the history of the world. What are we talking about with Caleb Williams?
We tend to do this, don't we? We get a kid that we like, and we start saying stuff about him that makes him unlikable, right? Especially if,
right.
I think when we were talking about Lamar Jackson, right, there was when people were like, oh, look how he runs. There's a whole group of guys my age that are like, you guys remember Michael Vick, right? Like we sat there and it makes you not like somebody because you're kind of trashing certain guys. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a really good pro. Here's something that I do want to leave people with. There is the difference between playing I don't want to use this comparison as would be my comparison because I haven't done a full film study on the kid. What I will tell you is I don't know if you guys remember Johnny Football coming out. What were the plays that you remembered? They were all hey, he jumps, he teabags his left guard, he spins out, he throws it against
off
Duke,
schedule.
Right? Or hey, he throws it up in the middle of the field to Mike Evans, right? Those are the kind of plays you remembered. Caleb Williams is a little bit cut from the same cloth. Now, I think he's obviously better from the pocket than, say, Johnny. But we do have to temper our expectations a little bit when you sit there and you go, we've yet to really come across a guy that we say, hey, off schedule is how he's winning Super Bowls. You could make the argument that Mahomes is, right, that those off schedule plays win Super Bowls. Simultaneously, it'd be a lie because we're sitting there and 85% of the time he's playing from the pocket and on time, right? So to me, Caleb Williams, we got to temper the expectations. I think he's going to obviously be a fantastic pro just on the limited stuff I've watched of him. But yeah, when you sit there and you start saying he's going to run like Lamar Jackson, I just, hey, he's a former GM for a reason, right? I'm a former pro QB because I used to hit linebackers in the chest when they were playing curl flat. He's a former GM for a reason because he said Caleb Williams runs like Lamar Jackson,
and by the way, I grew up, and Amal knows this. Michael Vick, I've never seen a better college quarterback. He was so exciting. But Lamar Jackson, no offense to Vick, is even on another level. I mean, would you guys agree with me? Lamar Jackson's just a different guy running the football.
Vick straight line speed was so much fun to watch, Tim. But Lamar, you can't tackle in a phone booth.
No, I'm just old school. Like, listen, I think, I'm the guy who I sit there and I fight all my young coaches. We have 10 locations across the country. I got 10, 24-year-olds telling me LeBron James is great. And I'm like, hey, did you watch Jordan? Right? I'm just old school. I just yell at them about it. So, no, I think, Mike, obviously Lamar has done incredible things. And we also have to be honest about the level of athlete that Lamar is facing compared to Mike, right? I mean, athletes just keep getting better and better. And Lamar's making world-class athletes look stupid. And you're right, in tight spaces. It's not even like he's got the whole field to work with. So Lamar is different, which then makes the Caleb Williams thing even more ridiculous. When you watch him, he more or less couldn't really run away from some gold helmets, which aren't always the most athletic guys.
By the way, Tim, I would consider firing those guys. If they're not intelligent enough to work for you and they think that LeBron's the greatest, that to me shows a lack of intelligence. That's just my perspective on that one. But, I want to get back to Caleb.
And integrity. You can't have integrity like that on your staff, can you?
Not at all. Absolutely right. You guys
can't play with him.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's the old Mike Singletary line. Can't play with him. Can't win with him. Caleb's great, but, we saw some of the criticism of C.J. Stroud coming out that Fields and Haskins in that Ryan Day system. What about the fact that when you look at Lincoln Riley, two other number one overall picks, Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, they haven't been great?
To me, the system stuff is tough because those systems work in college for a reason. They're simple. You can adjust on the fly against the coverage shell, and you're going to play with so much tempo that you simplify defenses, which is the polar opposite of the NFL. No one has ever come into the league and been like, you know what, I was successful in the NFL because we played fast against simple defenses, right? It just doesn't happen. They're going to show you a million coverage shells that you've never seen before. To me, that was the little bit of a knock on Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was one of the first guys that I said, hey, I'm going to take a look at his whole season. Go put on the Clemson Wake Forest tape. That was the only time the kid saw any sort of rotational shell, and he struggled a little bit. And I'd make the argument that it's still something that he needs to process better, where They start 2 shell snaps to 3, and he needs to know, hey, I've got Calvin Ridley backside one-on-one. So these are the things that I think we have to pay attention with some of these simpler systems where they've got to pay more attention to not playing fast and really actually processing the defense.
Nobody's better than Tim Jenkins talking quarterbacks or basketball. We'll talk to you next week, Tim. All Things QB on Twitter, on YouTube, and at TJenkinselite on Twitter.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.